Now, let's look to the next panel and moving on, which explores programmatic trading, basically programmatic trading from an advertiser's perspective and what it means to advertisers today. To lead this panel discussion, I'd like to welcome my colleague, Tanisha, who's Senior Business Director for EMEA at DoubleVerify. And again, please do submit your questions for the panelists in the Q&A box. Over to you, Tanisha.
Thanks, David. So as more and more advertisers starting to look to adopt a hybrid approach to programmatic buying, this panel will explore the in-house model. We'll look at whether taking programmatic in-house is still popular among advertisers, and also what programmatic trading means to them today in terms of attribution and preparing for a post-third cookie world. We've got a host of experts from Klarna, Red Hat, PubMatic and the Trade Desk. So I'm going to hand over to them now to introduce themselves, starting with Mauritz.
Thanks, Tanisha. Hi guys, I'm Omar from Stockholm. I work as a senior marketing associate at Klarna, where I'm focusing on a global scale around paid performance related to app acquisition in general. Klarna is a leading global payment provider, bank and shopping service, which operates across 17 different markets with 90 million active consumers at the moment across 3 different continents. Very happy to be here, guys.
Thanks, Mauritz. Anna?
Hi everybody, I'm Anna Luti, Digital Media Manager at Red Hat. For those that are unfamiliar with Red Hat, it is the world leading provider of enterprise open source solutions. And I've been working in digital media for 16 years, mainly in agencies. Before joining Red Hat, I was working at GroupM for 10 years. And now I manage a team of digital media marketeers in-house dealing with media campaigns in the EMEA region.
Great, thank you, Anna. And Zaid?
Hi, I'm Zaid, Director of Advertiser Solutions, EMEA at PubMatic. PubMatic is an SSP, been a mainstay in programmatic. First to market with RTB digital automation technology back in 2006, and now bringing in quite a lot of tools and solutions to the buy side as well. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. And
everybody, my name is Omar Velazquez. I'm a lead associate trading director here in the Madrid office of the Trade Desk. For those who don't know us, the Trade Desk is a demand side platform, and we allow advertisers to buy media programmatically across all channels globally.
Thank you, guys. So let's start off with how you buy advertising through programmatic channels. Is this done in-house, hybrid, or through an agency? And why have you chosen this approach? Probably more suited to Anna and Mauritz.
Yeah, sure. So currently we have a hybrid model. So we bring in-house a few people from the agency world where I come from as well. And this let us bring in-house core competencies, drive the media strategy, focus on the management of our first-party data, our audiences, and let the agency focus on the delivery and on bringing results. I think it's a great partnership, and it lets you have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and I can agree with Anna there. We are also having a Klarna and hybrid model where we focus on some operational work across different channels, but also around the strategic part. And then we have an agency that is very beneficial in some parts and some areas where the discussion around which approach is best. I think the hybrid is the best one due to the fact that we can actually focus on different kind of things. And I think that one important topic to discuss here as well is the more or less the beneficial part of having competence in-house, but also having an agency outside. That I know that, and we agree on this one, but that having an agency that focuses on multiple clients will be beneficial in the long term, since they are focusing on a different kind of complex problems that they can adopt across different kind of clients. However, I think that from a client perspective, it's very important to be focused on the core business, and which an agency cannot be 100% part of, which I completely understand. And therefore, I think that is something that I would say is much more beneficial in the long term, and not just having one in-house or the agency side.
What would you say are the pros and cons of in-housing, and what kind of tips do you think brands and agencies would need, and what they need to think about when making this decision? Because it's obviously a big decision.
It is definitely a big decision. And I think that the pros are that you're getting closer to the business and you can adopt more quickly. You can be more aligned on the business goals and any kind of data that some people cannot share outside their competence or outside their business in general. However, I think as the biggest issue is, again, the competence, that it's very expensive to if you are a big player, a big company, a big client. I think that is something that is going to be very expensive to recruit people and find people as well, especially find the right people with the right competence is extremely hard. If I'm looking at Sweden or the smaller markets, it is very expensive.
And there is for sure also a problem with turnover. If we were having everything in-house, I would be very afraid of people leaving to go to other companies or in agencies. Instead, with a hybrid model, the turnover is handled by the agency, who is usually staffed to have redundancy in the people staff and can swap in new people to do the job. But I totally agree. The best thing is to have some people in-house that understand both the business and the media landscape.
Makes sense. And in terms of trends, it's probably more, what kind of trends are you seeing among the advertisers that you're working with, and what changes have you seen over the past year?
Yeah, well, there's certainly no one-size-fits-all solution, right? But programmatic used to be this black box being tended by the agency for a long time. But now market conditions have changed. Advertisers and brands want a lot more visibility and control over their supply chain and their media buys. And technology has become a lot more accessible. It's been democratized. Brands can hire the right people to deliver the job for them. But as Mauritz has pointed out, it can be expensive. You do need to have the right infrastructure, hence the hybrid model. And that's a nice balance if you want to dip your toes into the water. When in-housing, brands need to think about things like setup, you need to think about data, tools, talent, and it's not easy. And if you are going down the hybrid route, working with the right agency, the job can be done. I think from a brand perspective, it's really about knowing where your strengths are and being able to use the talent that you have access to, both internally as well as with the agency, again, if you're going hybrid, to work very collaboratively. And this is where we've seen the most success. In addition to that, working for an SSP, we have our header bidding wrapper solution that advertisers are using. And this has revealed to them that they could be using sometimes 20 or even up to 30 different partners to access the same inventory. So once they see this, they start really reflecting, start asking questions about their supply partners, who they're working with, and then perhaps talk about the consolidation process. Something that I talk about a lot to my clients and advertisers is supply path optimization. It is still hot on the agenda. I do feel that it has become a bit of a catchphrase for many of the different ad tech initiatives we see today. But at the core, it's really about buyers understanding and optimizing supply, right? There has to be an understanding between what the buyers want to achieve and what the sellers and publishers' goals are. And in digital, brands and publishers, ultimately, we all want the same thing, and that's working towards the same goal, creating a transparent programmatic setup that really focuses on the consumer's ad experiences at the core, and then all values inventory at a fair price for everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, really good point. In terms of barriers to programmatic trading, for you over the last year, would you say that you're spending more or less than the previous year? And this is probably more directed again to Anna and Mauritz.
We are currently forecasting a flat budget compared to 2020. So more or less the same.
Yeah, we see it similar over here as well, that it's a flat increase or decrease.
So no new
barriers. We are all barriers. They're like the total media digital industry have had barriers over the last years, especially during the last couple of months. I think that we see big changes with iOS 14.5 being launched, for instance, and the Chrome new settings that is rolling out. I think that that is something that I see as one, well, I don't see it as a barrier. I see it as an opportunity, more or less, that you need to be more focused in the long term. I think that something that both Andreas from the first panel and the last panel discussed as well is more or less like contextual targeting. We see a lot of new opportunities rising up thanks to the barriers, I would say. But also when you're looking at different attribution platforms, you need to have different technologies in place. And that is something that I think that a lot of players on the market in general is facing. It's hard in general, since there's a jungle out there on what it is that you can actually get. And something that they also touched upon last panel is like, there's no single fits all. So you need to adopt, and there we come back to the hybrid approach again, that like the knowledge in-house might be very limited, and therefore you might need to have a strong partner with you on the way to mitigate the risks moving forward.
Definitely. And are these similar trends? Oh, sorry.
No, I was agreeing. We have the same barriers in programmatic and the rest of the industry. What I'm noticing is that programmatic provides a more mature context also compared to the walled gardens. In particular, it grants more transparency and control, and you can really try to find the best solution that fits your reality. That is not the case with one-size-fits-all solutions and the walled gardens. So still programmatic, it is right now for me more valuable than other medias that we can buy.
Interesting. And are these similar kind of trends to what you guys are seeing, Zaid and Omar, and what the industry is seeing from your point of view?
From our side, these areas we were talking about, like investment or budget, from our side, I don't see that, because from our side, everything looks still like grabland. There's so much potential. There's still so much going on. So I wouldn't call that a barrier. I do see a barrier, or better said, room for improvement when it comes to the preconceptions on audience construction and customer behavior. What I mean by that is still very common to see advertisers activating their campaigns programmatically with audiences from 2, 5, even 10 or 15 years ago. It's very interesting because their products and services, they innovate as the years pass, but the audiences are still the same, are just preconceived. And if you think about it, last year was crazy, not only crazy itself, but also crazy fast. A lot of things are going on now, a lot of things are changing. Socio-demo aspects that are already enough to reshape audiences. Like, for example, like a lot of people are now, if not already, starting to work hybrid, like sometime at home, sometime in the office, if not totally remote. So what that means for an automotive brand or a motorbike brand, maybe you have to start to think about it. Or I don't know, now talking to friends now is cool to live in the suburbs again now because of the lockdown fatigue. Okay, a flat in the center where all the buses, maybe it's not attractive anymore. Okay, so as a mortgage provider, as a bank, or again, as an automotive, what that means for you. And then let's not forget that we millennials, for the last decade, and I think for the next 2 to come, we are going to still be representing the global purchasing power. Meaning we will have to make a lot of decisions based on our values and principles. Values and principles like sustainability, environment, social consciousness, reducing the gender gap, all those things, we have a lot more consciousness than our parents and grandparents. So again, as a brand, how you react to those new values or new principles from your audience, because it's definitely not the same than 20 years ago. What I'm trying to say, so this was a contest, but what I'm trying to say and my recommendations to advertisers, agencies, regardless if you're doing in-housing or hybrid or purely agency, is to don't take things for granted and lean on tools from whoever you're buying data from or with. Every player out there has an amazing suite of products, data-driven products that are going to help you for audience discovery and like planning tools for your briefs, or I don't know, lookalike models, customization of your audiences. So my recommendation to everybody is to lean on with your partners, call it a DMP, call it a DSP, call it a publisher if you're buying data from them. Ask them a lot of questions and also get involved in the construction of the data. I think it's not only fun, but it's also the future of trading. More than crunching numbers, we traders, what we're going to be doing in the future is managing audiences and proving hypotheses all the time. So my recommendation is get involved, ask questions, and yeah, regardless of the model you are using, but we need to be more data-driven in the tools that the partners are providing.
Yeah, really, really interesting points. And Zaid, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I can add to that. I think of all the barriers or issues dominating ad tech discussions, I still feel that transparency is still right on top of the agenda for many buyers. And ultimately, it's about trust. It's about trust in programmatic, trust in vendors, trust in emerging channels like CTV and in-app, overall trust for the industry. I think we all recall Mark Pritchard's now famous speech a few years ago about cleaning up the supply chain and creating a new media age. Those words, while it happened a long time ago, it still very much resonates today. And I think the issue of transparency from a SSP perspective has given rise to supply path optimization. Still, buy side is looking to address transparency across their supply chain. So they're not only looking at things like inventory, they're also assessing fee structures. So for buyers, when you're working with your partners, think about every pound or every euro that goes into your ad spend, how much of it actually ends up in media. That's where the conversations on consolidation needs to start. And I think agencies and brands are now re-evaluating their vendor relationships. And they're looking to develop deeper partnerships with fewer trusted partners that can deliver value for them across the chain. I think without transparency, there just can't be trust, like any relationship. And without trust, we just can't evolve. And further to someone's point earlier, changes in privacy regulation, shrinking cookie pools have resulted in brand partnerships centered around trust and transparency, which can be beneficial for everyone, including consumers as well. But I think aside from that, one of the largest and most positive step changes we've seen in the last few years are the extent of collaboration amongst big industry players. Think about the IB FAQs, launched in 2019, IB Europe Supply Chain Transparency Guide, the Ad.Text Initiative, Sellers.json, IB Gold Standards. All of these have been put into place to really give brands and advertisers the assurances they need in order to create a much smoother way for investment to reach publishers and monetize their inventory. And I think the reason transparency will always be on the agenda, it's because it's ever changing. There's always new challenges we need to be facing as an industry, and it means many different things to many different people as well. Yeah,
definitely. And in terms of formats that you guys have been testing or investing in through programmatic advertising, I know we did a couple of polls earlier and CTV came out really high. Is that something that you're all looking at? Are there any other formats that you've been investing in or testing? And that's open to all. Omar?
Well, yeah, from our side, yeah, I wanted to give the turn first. So yeah, from our side, CTV is definitely the big piece of the puzzle, is what almost everybody's talking about, at least the agencies we work with, and everybody really is a central hub. Sometimes we refer to it as the digital fireplace. So that's definitely what more people are having more appetite for that. Let's not forget also audio, which I wouldn't call audio, that is, at least from our side, is not in a testing phase, because we've been more than a year and a half already having campaigns activated with audio, but I wouldn't call it a mature channel yet. So CTV and audio, I think they are start to scale a little bit more. But what is more interesting here in Spain in 2021, all of a sudden, it seems that as soon as vaccines started to be mentioned and articles that certain regions in Spain here is starting to lose up the restrictions, digital out of home, bam, exploded. Like suddenly agencies were asking us a lot of questions to our client services team just to get more educated and start to include it in the briefs for the brands they represent. And it just happened in a matter of 3 months. It's definitely, that's in testing phase. That's definitely in testing phase, because still we don't have a lot of advertisers doing that. It's not considered as a part of every omni-channel programmatic brief, but the appetite that is generating is massive. So yeah, those three, I would say that are the most innovative we have come across.
Yeah, CTV definitely. I think everyone is jumping on the CTV bandwagon. It is certainly a growing area, and I think it's probably one of the biggest opportunities we've seen for a long time. The buying behavior is also changing. I think buyers are keen to shift budgets into CTV, because they can see this is where audiences are migrating to. Although it's not necessarily a complete shift from linear into CTV. People are definitely combining their viewing. If you think about channel hopping from Netflix to Prime, linear TV, or even dual screening across social while watching perhaps a football match, as an example. And I think this has certainly impacted how buyers are thinking about planning for CTV, and they're looking to probably view this more as a complement to linear TV, which will always be the best medium for mass communication. But I don't think it's clear for everyone still on how to buy CTV. I think we've barely scratched the surface though in terms of what programmatic can deliver, both from a monetization standpoint and user experience. And one of the things that PubMatic is purely focused on is really bringing our header bidding technology into the OTT and CTV space, and to see how we can make changes and bring some of the successes we've seen in other channels into this new platform. But COVID has also definitely changed how agencies and brands are planning and buying all of their media. We've recently conducted a CTV study across EMEA, and what was interesting was that agencies seem to be dominating the CTV buying landscape in every major market that we've surveyed. Although broadcasters believe that data-driven and measurement in CTV could help open up new opportunities to brand direct conversations that may not have existed before, because it may have been inaccessible. And then the other thing is probably in-game advertising. I think it's one of the few growth areas during lockdown around the world that we've all been spending a lot more time, whether it's on our consoles or whether it's doing casual gaming on our mobile phones. But what's interesting as well is that the current level of investment in game advertising doesn't really reflect the opportunity. There has been an increase in the number of active players, either new ones or previous gamers, with no more on their, hands or recognition, their passion. But in gaming, definitely, arguably one of the world's, favorite form of entertainment, generating more revenue than TV, film or music, according to the WARC, which is quite interesting. There's more programmatic inventory out there than ever. And I think buyers, brands, planners need to reach the consumers where they are, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's really key, and they are everywhere, aren't they? We've touched upon this throughout the day so far, and it's another question about the post third-party cookie era. So, are you prepared for this post-cookie apocalypse, and if so, what strategies do you have in place?
Look, scalable audience addressability is absolutely critical for success in digital advertising, because without it, we won't be able to attribute, track or optimize our campaigns. And we think now really is the time for publishers and advertisers to define their strategy and their roadmap for targeting and engaging audiences in a much more compliant and brand safe way that doesn't compromise user experience. It's happening right now, so brands need to jump on board, join the party, or miss out altogether. I think three of the main options available that we've seen is matched first party data for bringing addressability to digital or post-apocalyptic cookie world, universal identifiers, which we all talking about, as well as browser-based audiences, i.e. contextual-based targeting. I think it's important that we think about each type of targeting throughout the purchase funnel and really how that relates to omni-channel measurement and optimization as well. At PubMatic, we are encouraging advertisers, brands and publishers to experiment with identity and data solutions, really to test the efficacy of each strategy within each channel. And some of the tools that we've now brought to market are things like PubMatic's Identity Hub. We've created the hub really to give publishers the flexibility to be able to manage multiple identity partners when executing their campaigns. And they'll be able to curate ID solutions really to drive scale needed for buyers to reach their desired target audiences through whichever ID partner that is for them. So this is currently built within our header bidding wrapper solution, which is built on pre-bid. Identity does, at the moment, in terms of the number of partners, by default, we have more than a dozen identity solutions. So all of your LiveRamp, Low2Me, Tap, etc. is available. And publishers that have identity activated can start to develop and really start to experiment with the different identity strategies by implementing things like A/B tests, just to test which ID partner could be the most effective for them. Sorry, go on.
Carry on. No, carry on.
Okay, yeah, and then from a buyer's perspective, they can create things like PMP deals with PubMatic's unique ID targeting to help improve personalized ad experiences to consumers in a much safer, brand privacy first and brand safe environment. And then the other thing we're working on is PubMatic's Audience Encore. And this is really an audience data platform, right? On the SSP, on the supply side, designed to improve the way marketers and data owners transact audience data by giving them more control to deliver much better outcomes and ROI across their executions, right? So they can do things like onboard first-party data. If they've got offline CRM data, they can upload that, and also use third-party or second-party data to curate marketplaces for them. Yes, this is really good. And then the last piece is contextual targeting I mentioned earlier. So we pass IB contextual categories and page language in the bid request through to curate PMPs. So publishers can essentially gain deeper insights and much greater transparency across their executions.
You're well prepared by the sounds of it. So, and in terms of from your side, DSP, how have you guys prepared?
We have solution, and this is important, very important, in collaboration with other experts in the industry. And I'm quoting Tanya from the previous panel. It is super important. The solution is called Unify ID 2.0. If you want to dig more, you can contact any Traders employee or even look in Google and find information about it. But that's not an important piece. Yes, we have a solution, but what is important, and also what you should remember and take from this, is that it's a solution that is based on identity, and it fosters industry-wide collaboration, as Tanya was mentioning before. There are many solutions. There's still not the one that is going to rule them all, but it's important to understand that we need collaboration in the industry to make it work. Another important pillar of this solution, of this strategy, or as you call it, is that it puts back the user in the center. So the user is going to be responsible for adapting the privacy levels that it's going to have. And another one is that it preserves the quid pro quo of the open internet. Like it always was like that. I don't think a lot of people are conscious, family, friends, etc. But it was always like that. It was free, amazing content and quality journalism in exchange of relevant targeted ads, and fueled by anonymous aggregated data. It always has been that way. So this solution recognizes that, and it recognizes also a very important point. And this is my last take. I'm not going to get too technical because I would like also Mauritz and Anna to give their take, but I would like to, and sorry, Tanisha, for not calling this an apocalypse, because an apocalypse is something unexpected. This was meant to happen. This was going to happen. If you think about it, not only the number of devices where we consume content is increasing versus the laptops, etc., but also the minutes that we are spending consuming content is also increasing. So these cookie-less devices like digital out of home or exterior panels, or smart TVs, audio, etc., all these are cookieless, and these will be ending up absorbing the devices or the content that comes from cookie-based devices. So yeah, I think it's not an apocalypse. It's something that was meant to happen. It's just the announcement made people work a little bit faster than they were expecting to do. But yeah, don't panic. And definitely there are a lot of players working on this and different initiatives, SSPs, DSPs, everybody's willing to tell their story. Whoever you're working with, go and ask them, get educated yourself, tell them to educate you in whatever identity solution they are working on, regardless of who you're working with.
Yeah, definitely not an apocalypse, an evolution. I've got a couple of audience questions for Zaid. Why is it so vital to support an open ad supported web over walled gardens?
I'll keep it short. I think consumer privacy and control are critical components for a healthy and sustainable open internet. And I think developing first-party connections between publisher, advertiser, and consumers has been a key part of PubMatic's approach to post-cookie addressability, and is further validated by Google's latest announcement as well. We think that this move may actually help to accelerate publishers' response to third-party cookie deprecation, right? And it will benefit advertisers who are increasingly seeking to diversify their spend away from the walled gardens without really losing that personalization in their campaigns. And I think this represents quite a significant opportunity for the open internet around user experience and consumer choice.
Fab. I think we run out of time now. So thank you all so much for answering all my questions. It's a great panel.
Pleasure.
And I'll hand it over to David.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Tanisha, and thank you to the panel. I really enjoyed that session. It was great to hear the advertiser's perspective and also obviously the ad tech.